Hi everyone, Sat here. So this took a lot longer, a lot longer than I was expecting. I wanted to just kind of show you some stuff about ARFoundation and break things down, but obviously as I started to look at it, there was a lot of stuff to kind of talk about and demo and show you the differences a script can make if you have one or if you remove it. And I wanted to really just put you in a position where you can build an ARFoundation project from a complete blank project. It's a really useful skill to have. And so, yeah, it's a little bit longer, this video, than I was expecting. You might not want to actually recreate this stuff while you're watching. You might just want to sit down with some popcorn. If you're into this, if you're really into coding, you might just want to sit down with some popcorn and enjoy this video. It's about close to an hour. So just watch what I do and just kind of learn from it that way. But you feel free to try things out. I'd love to see if you try something and get a different result as well. Please share that in the comments. That'd be really cool. But yeah, look, enjoy this video on the basic kind of aspects of Foundation, the kind of more in-depth look at it. If you like this, let me know, and maybe I can do longer videos than what I'm really doing at the moment. Usually I just do like a 10-20 minute video, but if you like this kind of long video, let me know. If it's just a bit much, let me know as well. Don't worry, you're not being rude. I'm asking you now, let me know. It's cool. I'd appreciate that honest feedback. If it's too long, let me know. If it's, just the right length, let me know. All right, cool. Anyway, enjoy this video. It's just an in-depth look at ARFoundation from the bottom up, and then we will go on to look at scaling in a future tutorial as well. And I also answer this question here, which was posed on YouTube. So yeah, I hope you guys know that I'm still helping you guys out as well. I'm still looking out for you on YouTube. Don't worry if you can't purchase the course. I got your back. It's cool. And thank you for those people who have purchased the course, because you're helping to provide these free YouTube videos as things go forwards. All right. Oh, one last thing. If you have purchased the course, the scripts that I'm using here that I write up, I only write up like one really, but that is also going to be attached to the project files on our page. So check that out as well. All right. Enjoy the video. Okay, so we're going to start off with a regular Unity project. I'm going to use 2018.2.2 F1. Now, you don't have to really use this version. I've heard some people say they've used 2018.1.1, and I've heard that sometimes that's fixed a bug for them where they have like a black screen. But again, in the Unity, in the actual ARFoundation docs, it does say use the latest version. So I prefer this one myself personally, because this is the one that I find is the most stable. But you can try this out with whatever version you want. Actually, I'm going to just say that. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call this ARFoundation overview, and then I'm going to create the project. Okay, so we've got a completely blank project, Unity project. There's no XR project stuff in here. There's nothing at all. It's just a regular blank project, and we are going to build this up into our first ever ARFoundation project from scratch, right, without using a template file. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to File, Build Settings, and I'm going to switch over to Android, since that is my preferred platform. So that's done now. So we've got an Android platform. I'm going to look at this ARFoundation guide. I'm going to leave a link below in the description or somewhere around. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, what do we need? So it looks like it still needs this package manager, documentation, XR kit, and XR plugin. So let's go ahead and get that. It's pretty standard, what I'd expect. Now, I don't know why I get this bug, by the way. I just ignore it. It doesn't seem to have any real effect. So I'm going to go to Windows, and then go to Package Manager. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on All, and I'm going to go down to ARFoundation. Now the latest version is 19, and I'm actually going to go ahead for this one, since I'm doing it from scratch. I'm just going to go ahead and install 19. If you want to do 19 and it's maybe preview 20 is that, and you want to go back to this one, feel free to go back to all versions and select 19 from here. Or you could try an older version as well if you want to experiment. There's no reason why you can't do that. So let's install ARFoundation first. Great, so we've got ARFoundation there, and let's also get AR Core XR plugin, since I'm doing AR Core. Okay, and then let's go ahead. Now you could stop there if you wanted. If you just want, if you're just building for Android, you can do that. I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to also get the AR Kit plugin, because I might test this out on an iPhone as well. Okay, so we've got in our project we've got ARFoundation, AR Core, and AR Kit. And like I said before, you don't need to have all three of these. I am going to do all three of them just in case I want to test them out. You definitely need two, so you definitely need ARFoundation, and then you need to pick between AR Core or AR Kit, or like me, you can do all three. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so let's actually look at what we're doing. We've got a blank sample scene that we get with Unity, and what we want to do is recreate that the original the augmented reality ARFoundation scene that we usually get in our demo scene, right? We want to recreate that from scratch. So if we go to this site, we can see we've got a bunch of things that a bunch of instructions that we need to follow. So let's just start off with the beginning one, which is this AR sample scene, ARSession Origin, and AR camera, and let's add these components into our scene now. And let's do that. So I'm going to go to the sample scene, and a right click, create empty object, and I'm going to put that as ARSession, and then I'm going to also do another one called ARSession Origin. So ARSession Origin has the camera inside of it, and if we look at this here, we can see that actually their basic scene doesn't even have a directional light. So just to show, the first one I want to do is I want to break this down to like its smallest version, its most simplest version. So I'm actually going to delete that light as well, and let's just see what is the minimum amount we need to create an augmented reality scene using ARFoundation. Okay, so we've got that, and if we look at this the docs, it says we need our ARSession component on well, in this case on the ARSession game object that we have here. So what does this do? This has control over a few things. The ARSession can be started, paused, resumed, and stopped entirely. Enabling or disabling the component will start or resume or pause the session. So by enabling or disabling, ticking this check box, we can actually resume it or pause it or start it, which is interesting actually. If a session is paused, the system no longer tracks features in its environment, but if it is resumed at a later time, the system will attempt to recover and maintain previously detected features. So it stores the trackable features, and then if you uncheck this, if you pause it, it would actually then stop tracking, so you'd lose the traction, but then when you put it back on again, it would try and load up the previous stuff that you did, which is quite an interesting thing to see, right? So we have light estimation. Obviously, since we've deleted the light, that's not going to work right now, and we'll need an additional script for that to work. But the way light estimation works is it takes in the light that's coming in through the camera and light source, and then it will apply it to the scene light, which will help to light up the objects in the scene. So then you have this other option here, try to install if needed, which I think is different on R1. Let's have a quick check on this actually. Let's go to this ARSession and let's add an ARSession. We don't have, so we've got a temp update. So I don't think, I think this is probably the same probably does the exact same thing, really, just a different name. But it looks like this also installs AR, some of the additional things that are needed on your phone if you don't have it. I think at 8.0 onwards, I think every Android phone will have it. I'm not sure on that, but if it doesn't have it, we'll try to install it. Now, there's something that we need to look at that's a little bit interesting here. This note part. An AR session is a global construct. An AR session component manages this global session, so multiple AR session components will all try to manage the same global session. Now that's super important. And also up here it says the AR session can be on any game object. So we've got a situation here where we've got a game object and we put AR session on here. It didn't actually have to be on here. It could have been on the main camera. It could have been technically could have been on ARSession Origin, since it says it can be on any game object. But the reason why would seem they put it specifically on a separate game object is because you can have multiple AR sessions. And I believe that was probably because of maybe something to do with scaling later on. But look, we'll go on. We'll figure that out as we go on. So included in an AR session is a static class called AR Subsystem Manager. So AR Session, this little script here, is not just AR Session. It also has AR Subsystem Manager. This manager governs the lifecycle of multiple AR-related subsystems and provides higher-level abstractions and utilities for managing and using the AR-related subsystems. I have a feeling I'm gonna be tongue-tied reading this, but bear with me. The AR Subsystem Manager also maintains the current state of the session. Okay, that's cool. So this try to install stuff. It is the state of that is in enumeration, so which is similar to like a Boolean. We have true or false, but those are predefined. So none, unsupported, checking availability, and so on. These are all those different values that it could have. Instead of it just being true or false, it has these. So the AR Session Subsystem Manager will let us know which state those are. So AR Subsystem Manager.system state will tell us whether we have found the flaw or not, or whether we're ready to actually start tracking or not. So that was an interesting way to be able to tell the user, okay, start tracking, or start tapping on the screen, or start searching the flaw. Okay, so we also have ARSession Origin. So let's go ahead and add that on to this game object here. So ARSession Origin, and let's drag our camera in here as well. Should we change the name of this? Oops, let's put that back in there. Let's change the name just to, why not? Let's just change this to AR camera as well. And then let's put our AR camera in here, this camera slot. And let's also just resave this scene. Okay, so that's done. Let's look at this ARSession Origin now. So the purpose of the ARSession Origin is to transform trackable features, the planes and the feature points, into their final position, orientation, and scale in the Unity scene. So because AR devices provide their data in session space, an unscaled space relative to the beginning of the AR session, the ARSession Origin performs the appropriate transformation into Unity space. Okay, so what's happening is the AR session is gaining all that information, finding some of the trackable stuff, and then, but it's all in relative to itself. It's all relative to the AR session. It doesn't actually make sense inside of Unity. It wouldn't make sense based off of where, the Unity space, until you have the ARSession Origin, which kind of matches those up together, so that the concept is similar to the difference between a model or local space and world space when working with other Unity assets. So yeah, if you ever work with a modeler, sometimes a modeler will send you something, or maybe you've experienced this yourself when you use something in a Unity asset store and the origin of that game object is a little bit off to where you would expect it to be in Unity. the origin as in the 000. It's just maybe it's in the middle of the object. Maybe the origin is at the bottom of the object, or maybe it's way off, right? And that's probably because there's nothing to kind of appropriate. There's no kind of appropriation going on between where it should be if it was in a Unity scene. So it's a bit funky in that regard. Whereas the ARSession Origin will set everything in the correct kind of place. Okay. This is still, I guess, it's difficult to understand fully. It's still a bit tough to kind of appreciate. And some of this stuff we just kind of have to accept to a certain degree, right? We don't have to know every single part of it. But what's interesting is here, the ARSession Origin also allows you to scale virtual content and apply an offset to the camera. If you are scaling or offsetting the ARSession Origin, then its camera should be a child of the ARSession Origin. Since the camera is driven by the session, the camera and detector trackables will move together in this setup. So to apply scale to the ARSession Origin, simply set its transform scale. This has the effect of scaling all the data coming in from the device, including the AR camera's position and any detectable trackables. Largest values will make AR content appear smaller. So what it's basically saying here, and then we're going to go into scaling in a later tutorial, but I just want to kind of cover this, is if you wanted to scale something that this camera was looking at, then what you would do was actually change the values of the transform. So the values of it would be would actually be the scale itself of the object. Usually you change the position actually, or with a camera. The further the camera away is, the smaller something looks. You know, it's just how perspectives works. If camera is really close to something, it looks larger. But in this case, they're actually saying you change the scale of this ARSession Origin, and the larger this scale becomes, the smaller the objects that your camera, that is the child object of this ARSession Origin, the smaller those objects that will look, that this AR camera is looking at. So that's kind of interesting. It's something we'll have to look at and play around with. But also what's interesting is that also means that you could have multiple cameras and multiple ARSession Origins, which is why you would need to have these parented and child objects together. Okay, so we'll have to look at that as well. So if we go on forwards, we can see that the tracked pose driver is part of the camera. It's on the camera, and it helps the ARSession Origin, that is the parent of that camera, understand where that the camera, that your phone is actually kind of looking, and is the rotation of it. This setup allows the camera's local space to match the ARSession space. So we definitely need that on the camera as well. So let's go ahead and add that on. And something else we need to do is change this pose source to color camera. This is really important. If you miss this step, nothing will work, because a tracked pose driver isn't just for AR core. I believe it's also used for virtual reality, and so they have like your left eye, right eye cameras. So you must do this. Do not miss this step out. All right, you have to do that. So I'm going to now that I've said that, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure I do that. I'm going to change that to color camera. Okay, so that's good. So we have the next component, AR camera background. If you want to render the camera device's color camera texture to a background, so this I believe would be, if you wanted to take everything that was going to come into the camera and place it on some sort of texture, then you would do that. I'm going to leave this for now because it's not essential as far as I'm aware of. We'll see if that changes when we build it. And now we need some AR managers. So the ARSession Origins game object can also have a number of additional components on it, which manage the addition, updating, and removal of game object to represent planes, point cloud, and reference points. These are the AR plane manager, AR point cloud manager, and AR reference point manager, respectively. So I'm going to look at this, and like I said, I'm going to break this down to its most basic form. And this is, it can also have additional components on it. Doesn't necessarily say it has to have those. So I don't know about you, but I'm super curious to know what this would look like if we don't have the AR plane manager, we don't have the AR point manager, we don't have the AR reference point manager. Would this still work? Would this be a terrible, am I just setting myself up for failure? Let's find out. Should we find out? I think we should find out. So at the moment we've got ARSession, we've got ARSession Origin, got a camera. The thing is, if I try to run this now, it would probably work. We'll just get a blank view of our camera and nothing more than that. I want to actually see if this is, this actually, something actually happens when we tap the screen, or will it hold on to the device's position and so on. So to do that, we're going to have to add another script onto this. So I'm going to put that script on our ARSession Origin. And I'm going to call that script Airdrop. So we don't have a ground, we don't have a trackable plane because we haven't added that script on here, and we don't have the point cloud stuff. So we should still be able to drop objects in the air, and they should hold their position based off of where they are relative to the camera. And when we move the camera around, the tracked position of that should allow us to see that object moving around as well. Alright, so when you open up your Airdrop script, it should have all of this information in it. Only joking. Your script will be completely empty, and that's okay. It's supposed to be when you start a script up. I just filled this script up with a bunch of stuff. I just wanted to save some time. It's not really about the script, it's more about what's happening behind the scenes, so I thought it's alright. I'll tell you what this is doing though. It's taking a prefab, so I've called it place prefab. It could be anything. It probably shouldn't be place prefab because it doesn't make sense. It's taking a camera object. On the update is checking whether we're in the editor or not. If we're on the editor, it takes the mouse input, and it will, if every time that a mouse is pressed, it will run this spawn prefab code. If we're not in the editor, so we're on the device, anytime we touch the screen, it will run this spawn prefab. So they're running the same code. So this spawn prefab is doing something really simple. It's just spawning, instantiating the prefab that we have here, which we'll add in now, which is just be a cube. It's going to add that. It's going to create that cube at the same rotation as the camera, and it's also going to put it at a spawn position, and that spawn position is going to be the camera position, which is why we need the camera game object here. It's going to be at the camera position plus the camera forward transform, so it's going to be just in front of the camera position at a spawn distance, at a random distance of 0.1 to 1. So it should just appear at random spots in front of the camera, and that's fine. It's nothing particularly complicated about that code or particularly interesting, so I thought I'd save us all some time. This code though, it will be inside, if you bought the course, I'll attach it to the resources folder. If you haven't, don't worry, you can still, I'll leave this screen here open for you, and you can just copy and paste it. Just pause the video and copy and just type it all out. But if you want to save a bit of time, there's another reason to get the course. All right, so let's go back here. We've got place, prefab, and camera. Let's put this camera in here, and let's look at the game, or we've got to create some sort of game object. So let's do cube. And let's change some of these values, because a cube is actually massive in the AR space. That kind of space is different to the Unity space. So let's put that there. Now we've got a little prefab. Let's go here and let's put in our cube like that, and then we can get rid of this one because it's not needed. So now we have a prefab of a cube, and we're going to be spawning it every time we touch the screen. Let's save this sample scene, and let's see what happens when we play the scene. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close to our camera here so we can see the forward position of it and see the cube spawn. So if I now click on the game window, you can see since when the mouse is clicked down, these cubes spawned. So 3 of them or 4 of them maybe spawned just in front of the camera. And if I move the camera, they stay where they are, obviously, because they're not moving with the camera. They're just being spawned in the Unity world space. And again, now that's perfectly normal. That's exactly what you would expect, right? Randomly spawning. If I hold my finger on it, they just keep on spawning in a nice little line. And I can, move the camera around, and I can see those cubes in the world, in the Unity world space. So you might be thinking, well, that's not particularly amazing or particularly interesting, but what is interesting is that if we did this on our device and we didn't have the ARSession script, the ARSession Origin, any of that, what we'd actually see is, if I click on here, you would see the cubes appearing, but the cubes would not really, they would appear like this in the hierarchy, but the way things would look in the game space when we move the camera would be slightly different. I'm going to put the cubes in the camera. It almost looked like they were parented to the camera. They would look like this. I'd move the camera around, and they just the cubes would not move at all. It would just constantly look like this, and you wouldn't be able to see any differentiation between the Unity space and the world space, because there is no difference. There's no AR, augmented reality session space taking place. Obviously it's off here because we're in the editor, but this would never be on. So there would be no way for it to track where those are, and that would be terrible. So let's build this device anyway, with the cubes and with the ARSession on. Let's see what it looks like working correctly, and let's also build it again without the ARSession and see that difference as well. Okay, so my Camtasia I was recording with just crashed, and I made some changes that I needed to show you, but I'll just talk you through them. That's okay. It shouldn't be the end of the world if I talk you through this. So when we usually import the package that they had, the sample package, it automatically changes some of these options, but we have to do that manually now before we can build to our phone. So those ones are stuff like the multi-threaded rendering needs to be off. So when you start, if you look at your project, it will be on. So you need to switch that off. You also need to change your package name from the default one. So I've got mine here. Your minimum target needs to be, I think it starts off as 4, but you need to be, I would strongly recommend 8 and above. I used to do 7, but I just received an email from the Android Play Store. I have a couple of apps on there that are like 7, and apparently in November of 2018 those apps are going to be automatically removed from the Play Store, which is a real pain for me, but never mind, unless I upgrade them, and I don't think I'm going to do that. So anyway, so from now on, make sure they're 8 and above if you ever want to build onto the Android Store as well, because they'll need to be. I wish Android was Google a little bit more, just let people know about that a little bit sooner. Like when you're doing this, there should be some warning signs there, but there isn't. Anyway, and then you also need to switch off. What else do you need to switch off? I think I went past it. Yes, you need to switch off this x86. Now, if you forget any of these options that I'm telling you to do, I'll give you an example of what happened. Let me just leave that one on, and let's also put on multi-threaded rendering, and then go to build and run. When you go to build and run, it will also tell you to select a folder. So I already just did this. I built the folder, and like I said, Camtasia crashed. I just put my folder inside my project here. I just built a folder here, and then I called it Airdrop APK, so you can do the same thing. Hit save, and then you'll get a bunch of errors. So it will give you the warning that you need to change. So don't worry if you don't ever remember these. You can always just keep hitting build and run. So I switched off the multi-threaded rendering like it asked me to there, and I'm going to get another error now when I try and build this, and it's going to say the x86 one. So you'll always get told what it is, which is actually quite good. Really helpful actually. They're quite clear with what you need to change. So switch those off. Now I've done all of those changes in the build settings. We should be able to build this to our Android device. So I'm going to do that now by hitting build and run and building the APK, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is really weird. I was not expecting this. I know exactly why this has happened. So this is my phone screen, and I'm basically just looking at the Unity world now, as if I was there. I'm pretty sure you've guessed why I can see this, but this is cool. I think this is a good way to start things off, actually. If I tap on the screen, I've got a cube there, and this is exactly what we were seeing in Unity, right? We can just drop some cubes. I can tap on them, and that's kind of it. There's a little bit of they're vanishing a little bit more quicker than I would have liked. So what I'm going to do is just change a few settings now and fix this camera issue. So let's do that now, and I'll tell you why that's. All right. So the reason why we're not seeing what the camera is seeing is because we don't have this AR camera background script. Now in this documentation, it says if you want to render the device's camera color texture to the background, you need this AR camera background component to the camera. This will subscribe to AR camera events and blip the camera texture to the screen. Now I assumed it was actually if you wanted to put that onto something else rather than the camera screen. And I saw this is not required, so I thought, it's not a big deal. But obviously it is a big deal if you're doing an AR app. You definitely want this. So we're going to put that on the camera. I'm going to put this on the camera now. So I've got that now. And then I was doing some thinking, and I realized, well, why the hell would you not have that as standard? And I realized that this isn't actually, if you think of the logic that ARFoundation, it's really kind of cool, right? This is ARFoundations, but it's XR.ARFoundation. They're thinking way ahead into the future, and I like that a lot. And you can kind of see their logic now. I can see their logic when I think about it a little bit more. You might not want to do this. You might not want that person to see what you're seeing. So if you're creating a mixed reality app, or even a VR app where you can see the boundaries of where you are in your room. So there's some games where you want the person to be able to move forwards and backwards in VR, but you don't want them to walk into a wall, or you don't want them to bang into the table. And you might want them to be able to, in VR, place an object on the floor, and that floor to be the actual floor level of your real world floor. So you'd need this AR information in there, but you wouldn't want it necessarily to be constantly on the camera screen. You want the camera screen to only show the VR world, the virtual world. So you're kind of switching into mixed reality here, and that's exactly why this is called XR. Rather than, it is ARFoundations at the moment, but they've always said that they're looking to kind of expand this out into XR, and you can kind of see their thought process now. I can see it a little bit more clearer and notice it there. So that's really cool. I really like that. So anyway, I've left that on now, and now I'm going to save this. And it'd be interesting to test out the other things like using a custom material and using a custom renderer as well, and seeing what that looks like. I guess that would be, instead of the camera background, it would be something else. That's interesting. There's something worth testing out on a different tutorial. All right, so let's save this and let's build this out, and let's see what this looks like as well. Actually, wait, before I do that, I've cancelled that build. What I want to do is go to our camera settings, and I want to change the near clipping planes to 0.01. And if you're wondering what that does, I don't know if you know this or not. If you don't, I'll just show you. why I'm changing the clipping plane. If I run this in the editor, if I press the cubes down, if I just hold my finger on it, now you can see that this is the camera view here, right? This bit here, this is where it starts, and this is everything that you can see within the camera range, which is great. But that can look a little bit strange, where if I'm moving back, can you see these, like, the cubes are kind of just appearing in front of the camera, and they're going to also kind of like disappear, but they're not appearing and disappearing at a point that's they're dissipating at a distance that I'm not happy with. Can you see here? They disappeared now, and that's actually pretty far away from where the actual root of the camera is. 0, 0, 0 is here. So if you were holding your camera here, it would kind of disappear out in front of the camera, which I don't like. So if you change the near clipping plane to right down to 0.00, you can see that now it's right where the camera is. So if I move the camera forwards, they don't vanish until they're kind of at the camera point, right at the camera. I prefer that. Now this does take more processing and stuff like that, so you're gonna have to have a nice balance. One way of changing that is also to bring the far down, since we're in augmented reality, we're not gonna have things that are that far away from us. So I could just kind of change this down to like 100, maybe even less than that, maybe even 50. Why this? We're not going to be looking really far into distance. When you're doing certain games, you want a really far distance. Maybe we don't even need that. Maybe we can just do 10. Let's try this out. Why not? So I'm going to try 10 and 0.01. So I'm still in the editor at the moment. I'm still in play mode. So I'll have to, now that I've seen these figures, I'll have to put them back in again. And this is better for processing as well. There's less that it's looking at. Let's put 10 here. Let's also bring this down to 0.01. Oh, what happened there? There we go. And now I'm happy with those figures. I'm gonna save the scene, and I'm gonna build a phone now again. Okay, so as you can see, there's no floor plane appearing, there's no point clouds, there's no dots, there's no nothing. And if I tap on the screen, well, if I scan the floor around, just in case, I don't know actually if this session started or not, if it's got how much it's picked up. So let's just see. If I tap the screen, we've got a cube and it appears on the screen. If I move the camera, there you go, the cubes stay where they should be in the ARSession space. Still a little bit tricky to get the ARFoundation, still cutting off a little bit. I don't actually know if that's my phone, actually, to be honest with you. I'm starting to think that it's my phone rather than ARFoundation, because I get jumpiness when I do a normal video as well. So let me know in the comments actually if yours is smoother than mine. But anyway, I can now tap, and you can see now, because we changed the clipping as well, the cube's a lot closer to us rather than being far away, which I prefer. So that was interesting. I think that shows that the minimum amount we need to create an augmented reality app is really the ARSession Origin, the ARSession Script, and the tracked pose driver, and this AR camera background, and then finally whatever script it is you want to run. Now this is just the augmented reality app. It doesn't necessarily use the ground, and it doesn't use the point cloud, doesn't have any visualization. Now if you wanted to drop something on the ground, on the plane, then we would still need to make some additions to this. We need to add stuff like the AR plane manager, AR point cloud, and I guess this AR reference point manager too. So let's go ahead and let's add those in. But it's also important to notice something here. It says each manager also accepts an optional prefab, which will be instantiated to represent the trackable. If no prefab is specified, a game object is created with an appropriate trackable component. So that's that's interesting to me, right? That what that means is we can go to our ARSession Origin, we can hit add, and we can select AR plane manager, which is the actual ground, AR point manager, is it a cloud, point cloud? There we go, point cloud manager, and leave these empty. Now if we wanted to fill these in, we could also do that by doing right click, going down to, and I'm afraid it's off of the screen, but you could go right down to, there's a field called XR, and then selecting AR default plane, and then XR AR default point cloud, dragging those both in and making them a prefab. I think you can only do it one at a time. There we go, and then AR plane one, and then deleting these two, and then going back to there, and then dragging the plane in here and the point cloud in here. Now if we didn't create these, if we delete these and we didn't create these and we didn't fill these in, it would automatically create these at runtime, which is really interesting actually, kind of helpful as well. So you don't even need to go through that if you didn't want to, if you were happy with the default ones. And then there's also this AR reference point manager. So I'm not entirely sure what that does. So let's just search that now. Reference point manager. See. Invoked update with a reference point pose or track state changes. Reference points. So here, it's a description of all the planar surfaces, the ground. Point clouds are the feature points. The reference points is an arbitrary position and orientation that the device tracks. That's interesting. So I guess that when you have the reference points, it means that the tracking is improved, right? So it's got something additional to track. So let's go ahead and let's go to this ARSession and add in the AR reference point manager as well. And I don't think there is anything in XR that says reference point. There's only session origin and plane cloud. So let's just leave that blank. It said it should create that at runtime. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this and I'm going to show you what this looks like. Oh, no, wait. I'm also going to have to do something else, actually. I'm going to add in one more script to this because we have got the point cloud working. I'm going to add a script called place object on ground, and that is the standard script that we get with you know, with the other package that we have. Well, it just means that we tap on the ground now, since we're going to be able to see it, it should allow us to tap on that ground and place a game object as well. So I'm going to copy and paste the other script, which I remember should be in a previous folder of mine. So let's just go here and hit paste, and we've got the place object on ground script here as well. I think there's a spelling mistake there, I've just noticed. So what I'm going to do is take this, copy this, go back to my script here, and just paste that same name in, so there's no errors. I think I might be too late though. Okay, I think that's okay now. And then let's go back to here, and what we need to do is place a game object in the place prefab for this. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and use the same cube as before. This should sit on the floor now. So let's try this out and see what this looks like. So this is kind of like, this is basically the exact version of what we had before, of what we download when we get that package, except now we built it from scratch. Now look, this is a really super long video. It was way longer than I was expecting it to be, but obviously you can see that if you know what these scripts are, you can knock this out within a few minutes really. It wouldn't take very long to do that. I've just gone into depth about what everything is, but now that you know, it will be a lot simpler to rebuild. So let's test this out on device now. Okay, so we're tracking the floor. This is like exactly the same as what we had before on the sample kind of scene that we download. And now if I tap on the floor, there's a bunch of cubes coming out, which is kind of what we expect. But there's also that cube on the floor now. So this is kind of, the tracking's holding on a little bit better than before. Yeah, that's a little bit better than before actually. So I wonder if that reference point script actually helped to improve the quality of tracking. It hasn't really, I spoke too soon. But it is better anyway, it's improved. Okay, so that is the, we managed to get objects floating around when we tap, and since we have now we have the plane manager, and that also means we can use this place object on ground. So when you tap, it also places something on the ground as well. Obviously, this isn't really a proper app or anything. We're just experimenting here with different things. It's important to know this place on ground script will not work without the AR plane manager script. Because it doesn't have a plane to place on, but you can still do airdrops, right? So we've seen how much you can do with AR Core, even with just a few minimum scripts, and we've basically built up that that's the package that I've been telling you guys to download to start up a package, which I think is really to start up an ARFoundation project. So now you can start up an ARFoundation project or integrate an ARFoundation project into an existing one, because you know how to do that now. So I'll build up of this and add in some a tutorial on scaling as well. I think that was the original plan, but I hope this answers one of the questions that came up on YouTube about placing objects randomly in space without a trackable field or ground plane or anything like this. I feel like this tutorial went on way longer than I was expecting. I'm sorry about that. I actually cut it down even more because I was going to go full in depth of every single thing in there, and I realized I'll probably bore you to death. If you did get to the end, let me know that you did. I'm sorry that it went on so long, but I don't think anyone's actually explained ARFoundation to this kind of detail and demoed it as well. So I hope this is really helpful. It really helped me out as well, if I'm going to be honest. So I hope that it was cool for you. If you want me to do other longer videos like this, let me know as well. That'd be nice for me just to know. And be brutally honest, if you think 10 to 20 minutes is the max I should do for a video, then let me know as well. I'm totally okay with that. Just leave a comment on below. I would appreciate that. And yeah, leave a like. And yeah, that is it. And I will see you in the next tutorial.